Welcome. Tiny Hands, Big Dreams. We're going to talk about Toby. Toby is our dog. Now, Toby has an interesting story. Toby was, how do we put this lightly? Toby was a special trade. Okay, let me back up for a second. This is really funny. We had this really unpleasant chicken, just laid eggs, really unpleasant, terrorized things, stuff was, we just hated this chicken. Like, we've never hated a chicken. So finally we're like, we're just gonna rehome it and let it fly off to some new wonderful home and annoy somebody else. Like, we didn't want to eat the chicken. She wasn't eating enough weight to do that.
She wasn't worth much of anything.
Yeah, so as we drive away to just like freedom the chicken, I started talking to one of my neighbors, and I'm like, hey, do you want a chicken? And then he was going to pay for it. I'm like, no, we're going to give you the chicken. And then they knew we were looking for a dog, and his dad comes running over and he goes, hey, do you need a dog? And I'm like, well, we had just decided we should get a dog for security, but a medium dog with certain qualities and aspects and possibly breeds and things and like criteria, and here's a random dog. Okay. So I bring Puppers home.
Tried to play him off as a medium-sized dog.
He was a small, medium-sized dog. Anyway.
He's just a little sausage.
Like I said, he was really intelligent. He's a sausage. He's really intelligent. He does pretty good for us. He's incredible at security. You can't get within a kilometer of our house. This dog lets us know. That being said, he was very underweight. He was emaciated. He was weak. He couldn't walk up our driveway. Like, we tried. He just couldn't. No. Like, he didn't have the muscle mass to even walk up our driveway of 100 yards. Okay. Well, they didn't feed him right. He had issues with food. He had been eating a little bit of chicken food things, maybe even baby chickens, whatever he could scrap.
He basically scrounged for the first year of his life before we got him.
This is what dogs do here commonly. Like, they just sort of like they're on their own. Some people feed them. Now, the question comes up, we believe strongly in food. Food is health. We try to be healthy by what we eat. The dog is not healthy. Well, we should feed him healthy. Well, what is that? Well, in the States, you could go and buy dog food.
Well, you brought the dog home.
Yeah.
And I proceeded to go, what? And also, what are we feeding it?
Yeah, so I went back and asked them, like, what do you feed him? And they're just like, they just sort of like recoiled, like, what kind of question is that? What do you mean, what do we feed him? Like anything.
Kitchen scraps. I'm like,
or everything, or just nothing. Or finally, eventually, they're like kitchen scraps, like just trying to appease me to go away and stop asking questions about, like, what do you feed the dogs? In the States, if you get a dog, you're supposed to keep the diet the same and the thing and the something and transition. Okay, all those are out the window. So I go and I get some dog food. It is predominantly what you get here is the lowest grade kibble. There's some slightly grade up things. There's some wet foods. It's expensive and none of it's good. Had experience with the States. I had a dog. She had all sorts of problems, skin problems, arthritis things, something. I had a really good vet, and the vet said to me, she goes, hey, change her food. Try this one. This one's really good. That one was Innova. I don't know if it's still around. That was a long time ago. So I switch her dog food. Boom. Hair stops falling out. Skin and coat look good. Her health is back. Arthritis is gone. Mm-hmm. Just the food. This was part of my food journey of what made me like understand how food is so important as a creature.
Yeah. And I mean, we see that with our other animals too, with the livestock. And so I'm like, well, why wouldn't I also apply this to the dog? The dog's important. The dog's part of this. He has a job. He should have good health.
He should.
So I'm like, well, now what?
Now what? So this embarked us on a journey of we're going to have to make food for the dog. And there's some recipes out there. You get a ton of, you're not allowed to, you're not a veterinarian, only a veterinarian can this and that. Okay. And there's a bunch of recipes by veterinarians, and they're like, yeah, they're great. Are you a specific nutritional expert? Then you disagree with this other nutritional expert as well, and this other one, and this other one. In fact, none of you actually agree, but you're all experts, and we should only listen to you, but you are all different. Yeah. So, dogs survived, as most dogs here, on scraps, things, garbage, who knows what. Let's do better than that.
And that was basically it. Was like, whatever I do is going to be better than what he's had. Okay. Now, ideally, I think that a dog should probably have a pretty high meat, probably raw diet. I think that's probably the best. reality is also that we don't have the money to feed him that. We don't have the money to feed us that.
Feeding your dog straight meat is expensive.
And that's just not, that was not in the budget then. It is not now. Maybe one day.
Yeah.
But for now, a lot of it was we need to figure out a way to feed him that is not expensive.
Right. So in all of our studies and reading, there's lots and lots of great papers, and one of them said a quote that kind of stuck with us of like, dogs are carnivores, mostly.
And domesticated dogs are really not anymore.
They've sort of moved into omnivores. Not totally, not fully omnivore, but carnivore plus.
Yeah.
They can use some other stuff. So we're like, okay, so going from that, we came up with a recipe. Now, to be thrifty about it, when we get meat from the butcher, which is, they bring in a whole chunk of cow and they cut whatever piece you want off it. There are sometimes unsavory bits on the outside, the skin, the things.
I'm pretty particular about our meat. So if something is slightly imperfect,
it's gone.
That's trimmed off. And instead of being waste now, it goes to the dog, which is also all of the little silver skin, sinewy bits. We have an awesome meat grinder. Did a video on that. So
if you need a meat grinder, check out our meat grinder.
It's an absolutely awesome meat grinder. It says it can even grind bone. I've never tested that. I don't really want to test that.
Yeah.
I feel like that sound would be
your hands
really
out
terrible. Of there. But it handles all of that really well. And what's interesting is the first time I made it, I was like, hey, I've sort of made bone broth unintentionally. Like it gels up and it's full of all of the proper collagen and everything that we know makes a difference for us.
Yeah.
So obviously that's going to help the dog.
By grinding up all those otherwise inedible bits, you've released their nutrients.
And then it's pressure canned, so...
And it's all made fresh and pressure canned. Yeah. So that was sort of the recipe. We come up with the recipe. We use our scraps. Occasionally we'll also, they get the basket of others that come with the cow, the tote.
Be awful.
But one of the things that we do ask for is the heart, which is a very nutrient-dense piece of meat. Not really a flavor that we enjoy.
It's not, the slaughterhouse processing is not something I'm comfortable.
Comes out, goes in the bucket with so many other things.
I'm not comfortable with that. When we do it at home, it's one thing, but I'm not really comfortable with that. But the dog doesn't mind.
The dog loves it, and it's $1 a pound.
So it's very cheap.
$1 a pound nutrient-dense meat. Okay, so you take that, you take our scraps, put it together. There's a bit of filler, is grains.
It's rice. So I use brown rice, squash, which is here it's like a pumpkin, big squash, but it's sort of reminiscent of a pumpkin. Sweet potatoes. What else? Plantain.
Green beans.
Green beans. A little bit of green beans. Carrots. And it's not always the same. Some weeks I don't have one thing. Some weeks I have a lot of something else. It's kind of like we eat what we can get that fills the correct nutritional
There's
slots.
fiber, there's vitamins, minerals, nutrients. It all breaks down with enough water that keeps the dog alive because he won't drink water.
He doesn't really drink a lot of water, does he?
He doesn't drink any water. People are like, what do you mean? Like, he's the only dog alive that doesn't drink water. I'm like, the dog doesn't drink water. So if we don't put it in his food...
I think he'd just die.
He would just raisin.
He's unique.
So... we make this recipe. Now, what do we have? After more than a year, the dog is incredibly strong. He's healthy. He's alert. His coat looks good. Every part of him...
And it didn't take a year.
Oh, no. This
is weeks, a month.
He started to get better, and then he just started building muscle mass over that time period, and now he can just run like lightning from what was otherwise a very poor state.
Yeah, he's strong. He's muscular.
I brought him home on a little pillow, and I carried him. And he was happy being carried.
Now he's just running around like crazy, super happy, super full of energy.
Yep.
Do you want to talk about his poo?
We should talk about poo.
It's gross, but it's also the best indicator of health. It is.
I mean, short of running full diagnostics and things, you could. A lot of it's invasive. You look at an animal's poo, right? It's kind of a standard thing. Now, most of the dogs around here eat garbage things, stuff.
It's bad.
I don't want to talk about it. It's super gross. It stings horribly. The dog is clearly not well. Now, it also, bugs don't eat it.
That's a really strange thing we figured out.
His poo comes out. It really doesn't smell. It's very solid. It's never bad. It's always just it's there. Now the next day it's gone, and we figured out that the little like bees, wasps,
Oh, the butterflies, everything.
have decided that is a high value nutrient source. So the insects attack that poo. Now the other dogs, neighbors, when they walk up the road, their dog will occasionally poo. That poo doesn't go away.
There for so long.
But his poo's gone in the morning. It's interesting how about just other creatures see the value of the food source.
It's sort of an odd thing.
It's an odd thing. But
it's a circle of life, I guess. Yeah. But no, he's incredibly healthy. It's been kind of awesome to see, actually.
So this was the necessity is the mother of invention again, which is our motto. We do it all the time of like, darn it, we needed to do this. Fine, we'll solve the problem, we'll do it. Now other people make their own dog food as well. But we did it, took a dog, brought him from a low status to a high status. We have a whole recipe, a thing. We pressure can it. With reusable jars and lids, there's very little cost associated to it.
Yeah.
Then there's just the ingredient cost, which a lot of that would be waste for us. So a lot of that's sort of free. Yeah. But when you price super high-end dog food that this may be equivalent to,
we're so far below that.
I've seen some of those.
Even if it was available.
They're in hundreds of dollars a month. And I just sort of like, And
I love the little dog, but I'm not spending that much on it.
Yeah, we're at a fraction of that.
And a little bit of time. I mean, it takes me some time to make it, but otherwise, it's not an expensive thing.
Mix it all up. Run it through the pressure canner. Whenever you need one, you crack a jar, give them some, put the rest in the fridge. It couldn't be any easier.
Yep.
So.
And we have a recipe. I wrote it all up on my Substack, so we'll link that.
There's a lot more information there than we could possibly put in the description of the video about the recipe, where it came from, all of its parts, things, how to create it. It's the best if you just go there and see that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so cheers to Toby for a long life and health. Maybe this helps you or someone you know that either pays too much for dog food or has a dog that is slightly unhealthy. The food really can make the difference.
Yep.
So thanks for watching. See you for the next one.